G'day, here are 7 thrillers I couldn't put down. My name's Tim, I'm a writer, I'm a reader, and I'm a creator. And in today's video, I'm gonna share 7 gritty, fast-paced, and tantalizing thrillers. You see, I work in a bookstore, and today I was asked what my 5 favorite thrillers were. And so instead of 5, I've decided to make a video on my top 7, adding 2 for good measure. So I came home, I brewed up the kettle, made myself a coffee that I certainly don't need, and I'm gonna talk about 7 of my favorite thrillers here with you. So sit back, grab yourself a cuppa, and let's dig in to these 7 thrillers here. Burn and Wood by Eleanor Catton, Booker-winning prize author of The Luminaries. Burn and Wood is a psychological, tense thriller set in New Zealand. It follows an illegal guerrilla eco-gardening collective who make a dangerous deal with a tech billionaire after a landslide isolates a remote farm. They plant crops on unused pieces of land to fight capitalism and to fight climate apathy. Burn and Wood is what I like to call a meaty thriller where it has deep character development and it has this almost multi-layered, faceted approach that comes with a story such as this. Burn and Wood is a bit of an outlier because whilst it's a thriller and it's a page turner and it's twisty and thorny, it's also a novel that is weighty with substance and feels meaty, dealing with climate change, dealing with capitalism, dealing with all of these elements that just don't feel like they normally fit into a novel such as Burn and Wood, all while dealing with the ethical dilemmas that this novel has in play. There is more questions than answers, but more answers than questions. And I felt myself gripped from the beginning to the end, and it made me want to join an eco-terrorist group of some kind. So yeah, that Burn and Wood by Eleanor Catton, sensational. I Am Pilgrim by Terry Hayes is a treat of a novel. When I picked this up, I didn't know what to expect, but it's a spy thriller novel that follows a retired US intelligence agent named Pilgrim. And Pilgrim's mission is to track down a Saudi bioterrorist who plans to unleash a vaccine-resistant smallpox virus on America. And the thing I loved about this novel is it lives in suspense. It is 500 plus pages of feeling the suspense of this novel, the grit, the thrill, the uncertainness of where it is going at all times. This book almost feels like you are reading a series as you go through this novel section by section. As you finish one section, you feel like you've closed something and opened something else. It is gritty, it is hearty, it is full of substance, and it's a 500-page novel that feels like you finish it in 200 pages. This came out in 2014, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since I read it in 2015. And all that to say, this is a spy thriller murder mystery that at the end of, you'll be wanting to name your firstborn Pilgrim. Anyway, that's I Am Pilgrim by Terry Hayes. Misery by the one and only Stephen King. This follows the story of a famous author, Paul Sheldon, who is in a car crash and he wakes up in someone else's house. He soon finds out he is held captive by an obsessive fan, Annie. And Annie's request is for him to write a new book and bring her favorite character back to life. This explores the themes of loss of agency while also the creator versus the consumer and the destruction versus validation, while all putting it into this bubble as you are pacing through pages and you are learning, discovering, and finding out what is going to happen to Paul. I think what's really fascinating about this suspense thriller is you go back and forth of who you are rooting for and what version of this story you want to see and experience and be in. And I was reading Misery while I was in Spain, and I was so wrapped up in this story that I bailed on the plans that I had to finish reading Misery, and I finished it in one evening. It's twisted, it's dark, and it's gritty, but Stephen King has written a tale that won't allow you to put it down. Anyway, that's Misery by Stephen King. Next up, None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. It's a dark psychological thriller that is structured like a true crime podcast. It follows a famous podcaster, Alex Summer, who meets her birthday twin, Josie. Josie pitches a podcast about her life, but as Alex digs deeper, Josie invades her space, her life, and her home, and you'll never guess where it goes next. I found this book in a secondhand used bookstore and read 50 pages one morning. But then I had to make a drive from Alberta to British Columbia, Canada. And it's the only time I've ever done this, but I went and bought, downloaded, and listened to the audiobook on the drive because I simply could not put it down. I had to know what was going to happen, and the twists, the turns, the thorniness, the grittiness of this story had me absolutely transfixed. And all of a sudden I found myself pulling up to my destination in British Columbia. All I can say is that was one of the best car drives of my whole life. Anyway, that's None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. A Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey follows the story of Dominic Salt and his 3 children, the last inhabitants of Shearwater Island, an island not too far from Antarctica, the home to the world's largest seed vault. The island was once full of researchers until the rising sea levels chased them all out. And then during the island's worst ever storm, a woman mysteriously washes ashore Shearwater Island. I've spoken time and time again about Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey on this channel, but I couldn't make this list without including it, and it is one of my favorite books of all time, and I'm going to keep talking about it until everyone has read it and I'm blue in the face. I'm sorry, but I'm not actually sorry at all. So yeah. Anyway, A Wild Dark Shore is an eco-thriller that explores climate change. It has character development. It is dark and ominous and mysterious as you turn its pages. And I've been trying to work out what it is about Charlotte McConaughey's writing that feels so real, because it almost feels like you've been put in a movie and you are following these characters in real time as you read these pages. And I think what I've discovered is that she manages to fit what feels like a 500-page novel into 280 pages. And I just think that that's magnificent writing in itself, but there is no wasted words, there's no wasted sentences, and it is just marvelous. Anyway, that's A Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. So yeah, read it, please. I'm losing some light here, so sorry about that. But the next one up I have is Find Me by Holly Craig. This one I believe came out in May in Australia and comes out in August here in North America. It's always really nice to see the Australian authors making it into the North American market. This is an advanced reader copy, so I feel really fortunate to be able to have read that here in Canada. And this one's told through the eyes of 2 estranged sisters, Hallie and Gertie, who at the request of their family have returned to the notorious mountain where their brother disappeared 3 years before after being assumed to have left and joined a cult on the mountain. This one has some interesting elements. 2 sisters that hate each other, a mountain that is cursed, and a cult that is somewhere on the mountain. It's dark, it's twisty, and the end caught me off guard. Anyway, that's Find Me by Holly Craig. I really enjoyed it. And the final book on this list is a book that I simply couldn't make this list without including. It's All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. All the Colors of the Dark is a psychological thriller which spans over decades. And we start this story in Missouri, 1975, where young girls are disappearing. When a young wealthy girl is targeted, an unlikely hero emerges in Patch, who saves the girl but leaves behind heartache. He himself is abducted. Patch and those who love him will discover the line between triumph and tragedy has never been finer. All the Colors of the Dark is a missing person mystery, a serial killer thriller, and a love story entangled into one, each having a unique twist. And truthfully, this novel feels like the gaps of watching people grow up. It's missing the birthdays, it's missing the big events and the celebrations, it's missing those devastating moments as well. And you almost feel like you are skipped through time every single time you see that person again, with a year passing, 5 years passing, whatever that might be. This novel feels like that. And this novel feels like you are in a car about to crash, and at the last second you turn and you get to miss crashing, but you have this emotional aftershock of almost having crashed. And what Chris Whitaker does incredibly well is brings you along in this novel, brings you into the humanness of these characters, the realness of these characters and this world, while making his characters make human decisions that you too would make. And I know I've spoken about this book on this channel before, and I know it's gritty and I know it's dark, but it feels like it has hope sewed into the spine of the book. And that's All the Colors of the Dark. And I will say nothing else other than this is maybe the best thriller I've ever read. Anyway, they are the 7 thrillers I couldn't put down. Let me know in the comments below what thriller you couldn't put down. Thanks for joining me in this one. It's gotten a little bit dark on me here now, and I've got chaotic coffee energy. I shouldn't have had a coffee. Anyway, yeah, thanks for joining me. Thanks for being here. Be kind to yourself, be kind to one another, and I will see you back here in the next one. Cheers.